Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditative practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. It's been a bumpy couple of weeks in terms of just getting consistent content and skip the live sessions a few times due to work, travel, and personal schedule changes, but we're back on track again and should have a good consistent flow of regular episodes on Wednesdays. If you're new here, this is a meditative practice, very open, easy entry skill levels that can build upon whatever you may have as your own skills. So anytime you feel inspired along the track or see something in a direction you want to go, follow it down that path. Just keep some of the guidance and pacing in mind to help bring the exercise together as a meditative practice and not purely a sketchy, fun exercise. This week I thought it'd be fun to meditate on speed and intensity through this act of engaging with the paper through a medium. I think what will make it kind of nice as an organizational thing, and also could have some fun consequences at the end, is to use a little color. I'm just going to use these colored pencils. Simple, pick a palette, maybe 3. More than that can get kind of complicated. 2 should work fine, but something to give yourself a little bit of difference visually to quickly discern. The same exercise can work fine with a regular graphite pencil, a couple of pens, even just a single pen. The lower the amount of difference that you can make with the strokes, whether that's color or weight of the stroke, will make the thing more visually complex, and it might become kind of neat and interesting in its own way. But if you have pencils or colored pens around, go ahead and grab them, and we'll work with those. The exercise will start off with a lot of looking at the slow and deliberate connection between the movement of the hand and the breath of the body, really pressing into the page, moving at just above too slow, and then releasing through the breath and moving quickly, fast, finding contrast in that fast and slow relationship, slowly working through that as a more intense exercise and evening it out into smooth, a little gradient of fast and slow, letting it expand as your control is really dialed in, and then bringing it all together with a nice even period of connection, of starting to see into the drawing, of finding a light, smooth rhythm of the breath, no longer guiding it tightly, but loosely wrapping it in evenness. I usually work on just a pad of Bristol page here, but anything will work. Notebook paper, printer paper, sketchbook, wherever you feel comfortable drawing. If my cadence is a little faster, a little slow for you, or if you kind of run out of paper, you can always start again. The exercises generally have a good amount of repetition moving through, and find your own pacing within it. We switch and often have time to quiet drawing and reflection to kind of get everything back aligned again. But to get started, go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. So I think I'm going to use a few colored pencils today, but anything will work. Pen, if you have a couple pens, one like slightly heavier than the other, it might help out visually, just to be able to see things, but I tried it out with a single pen and it worked fine in practice. But I have these colored pencils out and I wanted to use them for something. So anything should work. Today's meditation and practice will be on speed or tempo and working between the very slow and the more free and fast and open. Let's see what that produces for us. For the warm-up, I'll actually just use a pen so it's clear and easy enough to see. So in the practice of the tempo, we'll kind of go between something slow and controlled. So getting a sense of what slow is for your hand at the moment in the warm-up, just letting a line or gentle curve form as slow as feels generally doable. It starts to get too sticky or skips and starts a little bit. I might speed up just a tad and do a couple of those nice slow lines in different directions, even different hands, to let everything get used to the action and maybe test out where very slow is for you. And that slow time gives us some space to really observe around us and through us to the paper, to the pen. With that feeling in place, the other side of it might be the very quick, whether that's very quick lines, strokes, or very quick movements. Thing that just really engages all parts of the hand. Get the warm up, just feeling out what that's like to move at the two ends of the range, fast and slow, and maybe just a couple of things that are somewhere in between to bring it together, keeping the pen or pencil moving freely around the paper, changing direction a little bit at a nice, even pacing. Oop, the page. And a little more here and there. From that, letting the wrist and hand warm up a bit, give them both a little twist, rotation, working left to right and right to left. Make sure that everything from the fingertips up through the wrists into the forearms and maybe even the elbows is a bit engaged. I like to give my hands a little pressure side to side, just to wake up those joints around the knuckles. Set that off to the side. And then move to the larger page. For the exercise, we'll work kind of in general grain or direction, but I suppose you could mix it up, switch around, see what comes. But I'll start in a grain or direction. And I'm going to switch colors every couple of strokes to keep things kind of organized and see what comes from it. You could work fully orthogonal down the page, cross if that's comfortable, or maybe get a little sideways through it. I think I'll work down, things kind of raining through the page. And the first portion will be very slow, jumping into quick and free with our breath. It may be a lot of kind of very deliberate, controlled breaths, which can get a little fatiguing. So at any time, take pauses in between, breaths in between, and we'll let that slowly loosen up as we move along. But the first one will start very slow, somewhere on the page, a good inhalation to fill out and be present. And as the pen or pencil engages and begins to move, finding that slow pace as you exhale very gradually with the pace, aligning them in your mind. And as you reach the end of the breath on the inhalation, speed up and let the pen or pencil just do what you feel right on the paper. A wiggle, a slash, a straight line, something quicker, something jumping in speed. And as we breathe in again, we'll start to do this in a more consecutive rhythm after the first few, filling out some space. Exhaling slowly, controlled, moving the hand very slow with the breath. When you reach that full exhalation and ready to inhale, speed it up. Maybe even close the eyes and just move. Let the eyes track something seen. Breathing in to find that starting point. To calm everything and begin the slow exhale movement. Having some attention to pressure of the pen or pencil. Let it fully empty out slowly, and then on the inhalation, those quick movements across the page. In to begin and establish, out to move, even slower if you can, very gradual at the limits of the medium. The pen might move a little different than a pencil. And when you're ready to inhale, let it fly through the rest of the paper. We'll continue on this rhythm, follow my cues, or breathe at your own pace, but that inhalation to establish, and very slow exhalation with very slow movement, trying to feel if there's any side to side or resistance from the paper, reaching the bottom of that breath, inhaling into the quickness. Full inhale, gradual release. And at the new inhalation, working your way through. I find after that first inhalation and quick movement, an exhalation comes quite naturally, finding a rhythm there. Maybe we take a couple moments early on of quiet to sit with our own rhythm, our own capacity of the lungs and the breath, and continue that deep inhalation, slow exhalation, quick inhalation, and repeat at your cadence. You do them successively right after the other can really bring a lot of intense oxygenation, intense silence. You hear the headphones creak, table wobble a little, things around become more present as the moment slows in that intensity. That space of alternation between the very fast and very slow, probing the extremes to give exercise to our attention to the situation. We bring things into a pacing, align it with our presence, our self, our breath, and our movement. We switch from slow to fast, be ready for action. With the exercise can come fatigue or just the wear of attention. We can begin to even that out a little bit more, starting slow and gradually increasing speed with a few breaths, allowing for more natural cadence as you exhale and let the hand move a little freely, get a little bit faster, and end at the quicker end of the spectrum. Still breathing in to establish and get started at that smooth, slow pace. And letting it ramp up as it moves across the page. Breaths in between if it helps you reset or find your breath. We're going straight through, inhaling slow down a little bit, exhaling to be in that pause at the top of the breath and follow the wave of exhalation into a little bit of speed. A change of cadence, a little lighter, but using the practice, the exercise, as a way into the stroke, a way in to action. There with the whole movement of the hand, from the slow to the fast. And as the page may become slightly full of lines, we can shift to reading the territory that we've made after you finish out your next few breath cycles, or if the page is full, begin to move into reading through it. And a little reason for my interest in a color or difference on the page coming from perhaps a way of reading, of connecting zones across, but picking any two. It doesn't matter when they started or when they began next to each other. They begin a shorter stroke, a more even pacing, one that lets our breath even out, connecting them like two ribbons or strands, rails, bending through space. If you have a single color or monotone, you just do your best, let the eyes try to read through it. In the end, there's no correct one, just the ones that you draw between, and maybe in the areas of extremes, overlap and compression, we find something interesting. And the color slightly easier to follow, but maybe more straightforward. And working our way along the various strands, you can cross over or stay between, but however you're engaging with the territory in this more regular, even pacing, observing how the body changes its cadence from that first extreme to something more smooth to now lighter, watching the breath, listening to your inhalation and exhalation, guiding it as little or lightly as possible. It may always be influenced as we bring attention to it. Just breathing in and out, hearing the air pass over the nostrils or the lips, feeling the gentle rise and fall of the chest and shoulders and the torso. Noticing with each mark where the air goes. As I go to the belly, filling out the lower ribs, deep into the lungs, really expanding that diaphragm. As I go to the chest, the middle lungs, a nice, natural, normal breathing. Sit up high, a bit quick, the more anxious or tired breathing. And you notice letting it find its way to light, somewhere in the middle, somewhere a little in the belly, a little in the rib cage, a little up high. filling everything out enough to really utilize the lungs. Let all parts of them absorb from the atmosphere evenly, using that practiced awareness of sensation moving through the body to see in, to become a light guide as you link up, harmonize. We can spend another few minutes in that space, quietly aligning this light repetitive motion, bringing a rhythm and a space to listen to the breath, listen to the body, and draw into what you have on the page. In this time of quiet inner space, some reflection on the exercise. There's no right way to do it. It's just opening up a space to observe, to potentially practice guiding the connection lightly between the hand, the eye, the mind, the breath, presence, and action. Are you able to keep both connected for that time? It may be quite challenging. Your mind tends to wander. We get into the action a bit more, drift from the attention naturally happening, sometimes with benefit to flow and creativity, sometimes distraction. Can we gently notice, am I still breathing at a nice even cadence? Gently notice if I'm going a little fast or a little slow because my hand is a little tired or my eye is seeing a little ahead of where I'm acting on the page. Gently notice if my body is wiggling around, getting uncomfortable in a position, giving me distraction from the thing I am present with, drifting my senses outwards. And in each noticing, taking that light breath with your attention on it, making the next stroke with the attention on it, cycling through them in a rhythm or cadence that begins to bring them back together. For the practice and preparation for any other activities, whether they be drawing or creativity related, just thought related, gently realigning the many elements into a general focus, general evenness or lightness of engagement that prepares us for when we need moments of intensity, of locking in, of slowing down and focusing on detail. That middle ground, the getting in the work, getting in the practice, supports the bursts of training or expression in the high intensity, whether that's high intensity of pressure and speed, like we did early on. High intensity of activity, physical, mental, a little bit of deliberate training prepares us each day. With a few minutes left, your eyes may begin to start seeing more than squiggly lines or fast and slow strokes. If you're working through connection across them, the simple straightish line connection between two curves creates this gradual ruled surface thing that transforms from kind of 2D line XY to a seemingly 3D or depth interacting environment, a surface twisting and wrapping on the page, or just lightly moving across it depending on your curves or strokes. In that, your eyes may begin to see forward and backwards, front and back, sides. Perhaps light and dark can come into play. If you're working in one tone, say just ink, places of overlap become visually dense. You lose sight a little bit of the straightforwardness, but we gain interesting complexity of tone, patch and overlap, speed, wrapping. It could be a setup for drawing deeper, drawing further into an idea. Any two curves, just generally connected with straight lines at a somewhat regular cadence, starts the vision from 2D to 3D. Start the imagination moving along and begin to form beyond just surface by connecting across multiple layers and boundaries. I've stayed in the lanes in this drawing, much maybe easier with the alternating color, keeping the presence of two lines from each color next to each other, with the benefit of very quickly practicing. And that's something to consider in taking any creative act out beyond the exercise. Little tests we find our way along the way. And then you begin to see how cross connections could look, mixing things, bridging the fabric, maybe bringing a little shading or light into it, finding which side feels front or back, increasing the density of the lines or shading in a little bit the surface. Working through what's there and what your mind begins to pattern match and imagine. Until you get a little lost in the twisting, overlapping sea of things, fast and slow, dense and light, open, filled, forward and back, all blending together into a tapestry of action and motion that you can ride through the paper. With a large field, this could all continue on and on, layer by layer, increasing its density, slowly bringing resolution and the emergence of what we see the start of a longer journey or a multi-part engagement you can take through the week, building up to complexity from just a few moments. As we come towards the end of the exercise portion, bring yourself to a close in whichever place you're currently engaging over the next few lines or regions, shaded or strokes. Make that same choice as going fast or slow to bring things down in action to stillness for a moment. You can always go back in and draw a little more. When you're ready, setting the pen or pencil down, giving yourself that break, rolling the shoulders a little bit. They've been working, stabilizing, rolling the whole arms a little bit, bringing the hands together, squeezing to each other to normalize their sensation and their blood flow. A little flex or whatever feels good to the fingers, the wrists. And a good closing deep breath or two, filling out and releasing. And as the eyes and body re-engage to the drawing and the space around you, you make the places to keep going or take with you in the imagination out to the rest of your day. Well, depending on the medium you chose, whether using color or a single tone, depending on the density and action of your speed, and combined with the gradualness of your slow, we probably all have quite different formal configurations on the page, but brought together by the simplicity of technique, tying it into rhythm, and then bringing those light ruled surface strokes to start to see the surface. And if you wander through your drawing with your eyes and look into the spaces of twist and overlap, using something like a shading or tone shift can help to bring space out of those if you're interested in continuing further with the drawing or the exercise. There'll be a little bit at the end of my continuation, just a light shading through each color region to exemplify the twist and the turns, overlap them. But whatever you found in the exercise, hopefully it brings you a little bit of that intense relaxation, releasing through some of the more deliberate practice, opening up so that you can let in quietness, let in a time of just playing and creating, of being present and aware of yourself internally with the breath, of the page and the medium. Finding potential inspiration is always nice, but sometimes just letting it out on the paper, the physical act and the mental act, expressing can bring a nice sense of freeness and openness. If you enjoyed the exercise, please let me know in the comments what you found in following through with the cycles of fast, slow, evening out, and soothing into relaxation. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share with your friends. Should be new episodes coming up more regularly every Wednesday morning. So check in, subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Draw well. Thank you.